Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Shufflebus. As always, I'm your host, Jesse, back here with my round one of season 2 of the Shufflebus tournament. I was hoping we could get some double commentary like you all like. Unfortunately, it's just really hard to put all that together. So best chances for those are going to come from our live streams when we can put those together. And I'm excited to be here today to go through my round one matchup where I play Josh. And Josh is currently bringing a Jericho Creepers deck. Shufflebus tournaments are open deck lists, so I do know all the cards in Josh's list. And obviously he knows all the cards in mine as well. So he's bringing a 3 natural, 3 sympathy, 4-time Jericho Creepers list. This has time hoppers in it. It has all kinds of exciting things. I'm going to bring that up on screen for you here really fast so that you guys can see it and kind of get a quick look at what's going on here. So here is Josh's list. Let's zoom in on that a little bit closer. So we got Jericho with Changing Winds, Summon Indigo Creeper, 3x books of that, 3x Time Hoppers, a single Turtle Guard, Hunt Masters, Standard Bearers, Explosive Growth, Stasis, Accelerate, Blink, Nature's Wrath, Crescendo, and Outmatch. The 1x Stasis is interesting. Might be a first 5 card. Obviously with Jericho Prepare, she kind of gets to be a toolbox for you, so you don't have to first 5 it. I do suspect we're going to see a first 5 Creeper, Time Hopper, Turtle Guard, but we might see that first 5 have that Changing Winds because he doesn't have a lot of access to draw. So if you look at the list, the Accelerates will draw. So we could have a turn 1 Accelerate, like we could have an Explosive Growth Accelerate type play happening. A lot of different things, a lot of different lines that this deck can operate out of. Crescendo, also maybe a good first 5 here, but I would suspect that the first thing he's going to do is try to bring online those creepers and start making as many creepers as he can round over round. And so my list is a Herald list. After watching the success of Snakes in Season 1 and just other big ally units, and also just seeing the power of Root Armored things, I started looking for some answers. And so I decided to play Herald. His mark, his Hunter's Mark is such a powerful ability. I am playing Ceresaurus Mount, Frostback Bear, and Lightbringer, although I'm not necessarily first 5ing all of those. To be fair, it just depends on the matchup and what I'm worried about. Mostly, if my opponent is running Ice Trap, then I'm very unlikely to run the Ceresaurus Mount because Ice Trap really puts me in a bad spot. As we can see, Josh doesn't have Ice Trap, so not probably going to run the Ceresaurus Mount into, or probably will run the Ceresaurus Mount over the Frostback Bear here. And then just hope to draw the Frostback Bear. If we draw it, it's just more power that we can play on board without cards from hand. Lots of removal in this list. 3x Law of Domination. Really interesting thing about the law is that since it can't be prevented, the Root Armor doesn't stop it from killing a Root Armored unit. So if my opponent plays a Root Armored Knight, for example, or Root Armored 4 health guy, I can mark it, and then I can Law of Domination, as long as it's the only unit my opponent can choose. That unit's going to die to the damage from either the Ceresaurus Mount or, well, I want the Frostback Bear because of the 2 attacks. So Ceresaurus Mount at 3 or a Sonic Swordsman at 3 will both give me the damage output I need in order to go ahead and kill that unit. Just remember that this doesn't save your own unit either. So if your opponent hits back for 3 damage through the Law of Domination and you have a Root Armor on your Swordsman, you're still going to take 3 damage there as well. So keep that in mind. I do have 3x Summon Shining Hydra just to be able to put another threat on the board from hand. It sort of serves as my 12th, 13th, and 14th ally in this list. We have the 3x Meteors. This is just to help us with board sweeps. Things like 4-book Aerodel, if we run into that. Only 1 running in this tournament. But other sorts of big unit boards, like I just expect a lot of Knights and things of that nature. And so Meteor just gives us the reach to clear our opponent's board out. And if we are playing the Ceresaurus Mount, it gives us a lot of tempo to put our own allies back out in play where they may not have that, depending on timing and things of that nature. Also running in 3x Crescendo. just yet another way for us to deal damage to a unit without attacking it directly, and allows us to control the board and sort of pull off not literal 2-for-1s, but just the ability to say attack with Frostback Bear, Ceresaurus or Ceresaurus Mount, Crescendo, and take out a unit that we're not attacking. And then, of course, if we're using like the Hunter's Mark, we're still probably killing the other unit we're attacking as well. So we're getting value out of taking the opponent's units off the board that haven't been used yet, maybe have been used yet. It just doesn't matter. We're just trying to create board permanency and better board presence than our opponent can manage. Lightbringer is just spend 1 to exhaust 1, essentially, and this gives us a lot of control over card play like Crescendo, card play like when we're marking, so that they can't chump block small things, those kinds of things when we don't have mark available. Lots of opportunities with Lightbringer for solid play. So that's kind of a breakdown of the deck list. We won't go into much more detail than that right now. I will keep that up on Josh's list as just a conversation when I go through the match here. So we're going to pick our first 5s and get started. Josh is, I'm really excited to see Jericho Creepers, because if there is a deck I think that Creepers could work well in, it's potentially Jericho. Although traditionally Creepers have been kind of slow. With the restrictions in first 5, I can't first 5 a Massive Growth or the Summon Shining Hydra in this tournament. And obviously if I was playing River Skull, I couldn't do that either. But since we're only running 2 Sympathy dice in the list, wasn't much reason for that. So I grabbed the Lightbringer and the Ceresaurus Mount. I grabbed the Raptor Herder. Again, without the threat of Ice Trap, I know I can play the Raptor Herder and mount it without any sort of real issue. The next 2 cards I'm going to pick are Sonic Swordsman and Root Armor. Because my opponent doesn't have a ton of removal, he's got a couple of Crescendos. I feel like I'm in a pretty good shape, pretty good place, to just let us Root Armored Swordsman sort of survive and live through most of what they're putting out there. So just grabbing Swordsman and Root Armor are really solid. And then with the 3 Shepherds in the deck, we just have the ability to get Swordsman back. We also have 2 Polarity Mages, which allows us to get back the Root Armor if we want to try to reset that play up, but not a lot of reason to do that. So I'm really just considering like what I want to do here. Like what are my biggest concerns? And one of the considerations was whether or not I should just first 5 a Meteor. But ultimately, I decide against first 5ing the Meteor because Creepers are slow enough to come online that even if he prepares a Creeper round 1, I have just good plans for dealing with the Creeper 1 and then Creeper 2. So the seedlings in particular, which are the problems. So you'll see how I handle that here in round 1. And then, we're going to rely heavily on round 2, 3, and 4, having the opportunity to Meteor a couple of times to get us where we want to do. I do apologize for sort of the slow play that happens in this match, because one of the problems we ran into is that TTS updated on this night, and it just honestly, I think with everybody who uses TTS updating, it just sort of created like this weird lag. So you can just see where like we hit the roll button and we're just waiting for these these dice to move over to the active pool. And you can just see how slow TTS is responding. And I thought at first it might be my machine, but then I played another game on my laptop that same night and had a very similar problem. So I know it's not the machine. It was something to do with TTS, and I'm hoping that the update didn't break something. We did roll out 5 basics to his 2 basics. And one of the things that I'm worried about is if my plan goes sideways, Creepers could have significant advantage over me at the top of round 2. And I don't really want that. Obviously, like if he makes Brilliant Thorns, I don't have to worry about that. But I think the primary goal for any Creepers deck would be to position themselves with units in the point where they can make the Thorns at the top of round 2 and then move in for potential kill. But that is sort of the slow part of Creepers, which means it gives me a chance to respond and react. So at this particular stage, I'm letting him go first. I want to have top of round 2 action because I think it's possible that I may have a better board presence and be able to do more damage to him by top of round 2. And, I just think that that's a better place for me to be here, even though I rolled worse than him. I don't roll particularly well in this game in general. So I'm happy to see that the deck like dig its way out of bad rolls, essentially. So he goes ahead and prepares. He plays his Indigo Creeper book. Tells me we're for sure on the Creeper plan, but I'm still not sure if he's going to go with a second Time Hopper, which can make just a lot of status tokens and might be the better first prepare for the deck. Having not played Jericho Creepers or played against Jericho Creepers, I don't really know the best sequencing, to be totally fair. So I just go ahead and play the Ceratosaurus mount here. Not really a reason to not show the book. He knows I have it. He knows I have that or Frostback Bear. He may still be thinking I'm trying to play this and Bear. And I could do that, but that's 6 dice. That makes it for a really expensive, sort of first round. So I go ahead and meditate here. I meditate 1. I do lose a Shining Hydra. Meditate a second die. Just bringing online all of the cards I need. I lose a Law of Domination. Knowing that my opponent doesn't have the Root Armor in his list. Let me double check that. I just don't want to be wrong on that. He does not run a Root Armor in this list. I don't need the Law as a removal spell quite as effectively because I can just use standard unit combat to make favorable exchanges into any of his larger units. And smaller units I can deal with through just meteors, stuff of that nature. So here's the Changing Winds. So we definitely know we're on the Changing Winds plan. Interesting here, one of the things I didn't realize about the Changing Winds is when you play it, the first effect of coming into play is a May. So you don't have to draw the 2 and put 2 cards back. And I think that's really neat. I think that's just fine. So then he just goes ahead and side actions and pulls the Prepare card. So, Changing Winds is just really good as an onboard tool for Jericho. That 3 spell board does become a little bit of a liability, and Changing Winds does sort of clog his spell board slot. But, for a main side, being able to just draw a card and change dice is totally fine. And I think, gives him a lot of opportunity to fix things and sort of win the mill race, if you will, if we get to that particular stage of the game. I'm just going to go ahead and threaten the Lightbringer here. And the reason I'm putting the Lightbringer down is because I want to have it on board for when he makes a creeper and I kill a creeper. So because I meditated 2 natural dice, part of my consideration here is the ability for me to ping the first creeper down. And through that ping, turn around and be able to get the Seedling book out and then respond with Lightbringer for a forced attack of the Seedling and exhaust the Seedling. Because once the Seedling exhausts, while he can put status tokens on to decrease its life, because that's inexhaustible, he cannot grow it into the Brilliant Thorns. So it sort of takes the unit away from the whole sequence. So here comes second Creeper book. So as we're looking at his dice spread now, all 4 of his dice minus 1 nature die are going to be spent on creepers at this point. So that only leaves him with 3 more dice in his pool in total. And so I'm trying to figure out what those 3 dice may be. I think one of them is potentially the one Stasis in the deck. And we will see if it is, but we go ahead and make the Herder here because he does not have a way to kill my Herder before I Ceratosaurus mount. Now, one of the things I don't want to do is leave the Herder up with that 1 natural die on his board. And so I'm going to go ahead and immediately make my Ceratosaurus mount. And that's going to give us a 3/3 with the Overkill, I think is what it's called. Overkill 1. So, and again, TTS doing TTS things here. So we're dragging out the Ceratosaurus mount. And again, I apologize. Like I said, TTS was just acting really poor through this whole match. So it did make things a little bit more laborious and slow. So we get the status token out. That ends up being main side, so then we send it back to Josh. So this sort of says, okay, Josh, do you have your crescendo? If you do, great. I'm going to lose my Ceratosaurus mount to your creeper. But again, I can kind of bait that whole play with letting the Lightbringer happen, and we'll just see if the Ceratosaurus mount dies. So I suspect that we're going to see the first creeper here, and that's definitely what he's doing. It looks like is searching his conjuration pile to make that first creeper. So let's see what happens. I think he knows potentially. Excuse me. I think he knows that potentially the Lightbringer poses a problem for his deck here, in terms of just taking away the ability to create double seedling round one, and the fact that that double seedling can't be grown and made into a brilliant thorn after it comes into play, creates a whole turn where essentially you turn the creepers off. And so he does have the focus one, which does mean he's going to put a status token on the creeper. So one of the things I would have done differently if I was him is I would have potentially tried to first five like a standard bear, something of that nature that I'm able to put an additional status token on and create a threat that as an opponent I have to respect. And it also allows you to first five an explosive growth onto the standard bearer as a really aggressive first round unit. Now, the fact that I've made a hatchling, he's going to have to clear that hatchling. Now that I'm making a Lightbringer, I'm ahead of him on units on board. And that means that one of the problems that creepers will have, and so we do exactly the plan, which was, again, nature, ping the creeper, make the Lightbringer, and then here's TTS doing TTS things again as I'm trying to exhaust the Lightbringer book. And if you'll see, we're set up still to be able to play the Swordsman and play the Root Armor. And my opponent's down to 3 cards in hand. And again, if he makes another creeper, that 3 dice means that there's not a threat because we don't have a 3-cost knight yet in time. So with these colors and configurations, I'm not sure he could be playing Huntmaster. Obviously, he does have Huntmasters, and he could play a Huntmaster still this turn. That could be one of his units. But I do think if he plays a Huntmaster into this board, I have a lot of ways to kind of punish that Huntmaster. One way is to mark it and attack it with the Ceratosaurus and kill and do 1 point of damage to the Jericho. And so, again, we just have multitudes of ways to deal with these potential threats that he's making in first round. So he attacks for 0. Obviously, no counter is happening here. I'm just checking to make sure growth is inexhaustible, which it is. So if he decides to start spreading status tokens through Time Hopper or through Creeper Book, he's not going to be able to grow this into Brilliant Thorn. So normally I think what he would want to do here is play Time Hopper Book as a side action, and then summon another Creeper and put the status token on the ceiling, and then make a Hopper, which in turn would bring out the Brilliant Thorns. Since we've exhausted the seedling, that's not possible now. So here's Unmeditate, because I know I need to get this die up, and I don't want to pass main here. So I think if I remember correctly, I just attack Jericho for 3. Actually, I just attack the ceiling to remove it. Yeah. And we'll see if he lets Jericho take the 3. And I think if I remember correctly, Jericho does guard this seedling here. And I'm not sure if that's the right decision for Josh. We'll see what happens here. Because it's a difference between taking 1 or taking 3. That's a pretty significant number, but I think he's really wanting to try to get that ceiling's health up. And I think he thinks if he can get the ceiling health up, he's in better shape. However, he doesn't know I'm holding a Swordsman, which means I can double exhaust the seed if I need to. So now that he's out of blocks, I have a lot more flexibility in what I'm going to do. So here's the Time Hopper. Don't really care too much about the Time Hopper in general, because it's so he just mains the Time Hopper book and sides a Time Hopper into play and puts a seedling counter on his Luminous seedling. And TTS is working on, the creator of TTS this mod is working on changing these status tokens so they come out on the correct side. Just a nice quality of life improvement. He added the 3 side, which was great because we didn't have it before, but it just now is defaulting to the 3 side instead of the 1 side. So I'm going to go ahead and play the Swordsman and Root Armor it. He's down to only being able to play a Huntmaster is essentially what I'm looking at. And I know that he's going to have to meditate to play the Huntmaster, so there's no way to do any other kinds of like explosive growth shenanigans and that. I still have my Herald block available. 1 consumed soul left in deck. So I'm feeling pretty good about all of that. So, there's not much else I can expect. He's got a double exhaustion token on the Time Hopper book, just because we were having TTS problems. So that's just an error. We correct that error. Get some meditation. So we lose a Huntmaster. So I know he's down to 2 Huntmasters in deck now. This just fully I expect to be a Huntmaster. Actually, it's for 2. I think he's making another Creeper. So one of the things we can do here is, and he seeds the seedling that's exhausted. I think he's going to put on the Time Hopper, and I think that's just for a future round, essentially. We're just going to mark here, and the reason we're going to mark is so it's actually completely unnecessary, to be honest, because the Jericho has already been blocked, but is already blocked, so we can just attack Swordsman into that seed, and we didn't need to use the mark here, but and then we're going to go ahead and exhaust that Creeper. Again, don't really care about the Time Hopper so much. It is potentially possible that he's got... I looked at his deck list, doesn't have the Flash Strikes, but that was one thing I was considering with that status token on the Time Hopper. Is Flash Strike would be really good here. Although I can just block with the Hatchling. Again, we've got a really nice board set up here. Just in terms of what's going to happen. So he attacks for 1 at the Hatchling. I just let Herald tank that, knowing that I'll have Consumed Soul. And I pass, and that's going to end round 1. So I feel really good about our status in round 1 because he's going to make a seed, but I'm going to have the opportunity to just take the seed down almost instantly. And if I draw a Consumed Soul, then that lets me do it without punishing the Jericho player. But I'm also just fine with making the same attack I made in round 1. And if he makes seeds, then he makes seeds. So, or he makes the thorns. Like 2 thorns aren't going to win the game here. I mean, it's potentially possible that 2 thorns and like an accelerate turn with explosive growth and exhortation would, but he doesn't have the exhortations in list. So I'm less concerned about that sort of explosive counterplay. We do draw Meteor Shepherd, Law of Domination, Frostback Bear, and Raptor Herder. So, this is a really good place for me, just in general, because I have just like a million different patterns that I can use now, just depending upon, depending on what my opponent decides to do. So, one thing that I get to decide on is how I want to start the round. And I think ultimately I start the round with a Ceratosaurus mount attack into that seed because we need to get rid of it. I mean, there's no reason to not get rid of it because we'd rather have him make 2 creepers. And so he's going to stasis, I think, here. He gets the 1 of stasis. I think he probably had first 5'd it and held it. This could also potentially be... It could be an outmatch. And outmatch would be a trade between the Ceratosaurus mount and the seedling. So, and he pulls it back and decides just to let the seed die and take the 1 damage from the overkill. So, he was definitely thinking about it, and it tells me he's either got the outmatch or the stasis. I don't know which one it is exactly, but I think he knew that he couldn't pressure. And so we meditate here. Meditate one meteor. So we got one meteor in hand, one meteor left in deck, and Ceresaurus Mount's exhausted. So again, I think we're in a good place. I think he knows he wants to try to figure out how to kill my swordsman with root armor, and I think that's why swordsman is a big enough threat here, and that's why I do believe that he probably has the outmatch over the stasis. But I don't know for sure at this point in the game. It'll definitely play itself out as the round progresses, and there's the Huntmaster. I'm not sure if that was in his first 5 and just didn't get played, or if that was something different. The thing we're going to do here now is we're going to really take advantage of trying to pressure this Huntmaster off the board. And so the best way to pressure the Huntmaster off the board is to mark it. Obviously, we don't have the Consume Soul, which would be just a blowout, the ability to get our mark back in case he plays another Huntmaster or another Standard Bearer or something of that nature. But we can't have all the tools, right, all the time. So there's a couple of options we could make here. One would be I could Law of Domination for 1, but that puts me in an awkward place where I'm giving up the meteor play, essentially. Because if I give up the meteor play or I play Law of Domination and Shepherd, then we're definitely not meteoring this round. And we've got a lot of dice still left, and we've got our Raptor Herder underneath the Ceresaurus Mount. So, and the ability to make second Raptor Herder Ceresaurus Mount here, still have dice left over to meteor and still make both Raptor Herders come back out, and the Frostback Bear. Like, we have enough dice for all of this. So, like, as we're looking at the numbers, it's sort of in our best bet to go ahead and mark with the Swordsman. And one of the things that we can do very well is if he prepares the second Hopper book, we can exhaust his Time Hopper to avoid making a bunch of bunnies. And I think, that's a really good way for us to manage the Hoppers with the Sonic Swordsman's ability, the Sonic Pulse ability on the Swordsman. It does extend my board, and I do know that he has the outmatch. So at least that's what I think he has at this particular point. But I'm also saying I'm willing to trade my Swordsman for your Huntmaster at this particular juncture. And I think that's just a safe play for me right now, because he spent 3 dice this round to my 4 dice last round, and I've gotten 2 activations out of Swordsman. So there's the outmatch. We definitely were expecting that. So we exhaust the Hopper, and my Swordsman is going to die. So don't know why I was grabbing exhaustion tokens, but I was. Lose the root armor, lose the Swordsman. We really do have the option still to use the Shepherd to get Swordsman back. It'd just be really hard to play Swordsman this round, and would be very much dependent upon how the rest of the round shakes out and what my opponent does with his last 5 dice. But as you can see, at this particular point, I have spent 0 dice. So I'm 5 dice up on him and 2 cards up on him. And that's really just a product of, like, he can only make 1 creeper now with this current dice spread. And if he plays a Time Hopper, he can make 2 hoppers. And that's really the extent of what he's got in the tank. So he's just going to make the creeper here. I'm fine with that. I don't really have a large desire to deal with that creeper directly right now. I can nature ping it if I wanted to. But I don't want to get into a position where if that prepare was the second Hopper book, because he's now drawing it, right? So he puts the status token on the Time Hopper. Again, I'm not sure what the status tokens from the Creeper books provide if you don't have a Standard Bearer in play with this deck, or the Huntmaster in play for additional, like, spend tokens. Like, that's one thing it does, is replenish the Huntmaster. But I mean, you have so many activations, I don't think Huntmaster's going to survive long enough to make that matter. So right now, my opponent's not threatening a ton of damage here on the board. And so I'm just going to go ahead and make second Herder, second Ceresaurus Mount. because I have this innate ability to like really just all out attack his board and force him to block. The time hopper cannot block. So I just create a board advantage that's going to get some damage through, and I have the potential to deal like 5 damage here through the Ceratosaurus mount. So we just do that. And again, I think if you're sitting across from me on this, the only way out of this is to directly attack the Ceratosaurus mount. But without flash strikes, you can't extend this board. You can't extend your board into that mount properly. So I think that's a potential miss for Josh and his list, is not having the flash strikes with all these status tokens being able to fly around. It would certainly change a lot of my play considerations if flash strike was a part of his list. Okay, so now we get to see what Josh is going to do with these last time dice. Most likely what we're going to see is a hopper book and then 2 hoppers is what I'm sort of planning on. And to be honest, those 2 hoppers don't scare me that much, because I'm going to attack here, clear the Panther Spirit and the the Creeper. And he doesn't have the dice now to summon another Creeper, so that if he does play Time Hopper Book and proceeds to make a Time Hopper now, he loses the ability to grow the seedling into the Brilliant Thorn. So there's the Hopper Book. So we're so far so good on our plan, thinking a few turns ahead and what his play patterns could be. It's tricky here, because if he doesn't do this, then he loses. He has the option then off of the Creeper to play Hopper into status token on the seed. And if he does that, I have to ping his Hopper that's exhausted and then Law Dominate to clear the seed. So that's sort of is giving up the Meteor play if he makes that line in that pattern. And I'm okay with that. I feel like if we turn the round and I've got, Hatchling and 2 Ceratosaurus mounts and a Frostback Bear, So he doesn't play the side, which is fine. We still commit this plan because we're attacking for 7 here. So he definitely just can't take 7. If he tries to race me at this point, he's going to lose just based on my board presence. So yeah, he goes ahead and blocks both of the hatchlings. And I, again, apologize. TTS is acting so poorly that it just got skipped on the recording, but makes the seed. We're coming out of it and recovering here. And so he now has the option, make that first hopper. Because his hopper is exhausted, he doesn't get the 2 tokens immediately to grow the Brilliant Thorns. But if he did grow Brilliant Thorns immediately out of this, that would just be pure Time to Meteor plan. There would just be no reason to not Meteor at that particular stage. So we also have the Lightbringer still available, so we can force additional exhaustions if we needed to. Again, that gives up the Meteor, so I don't want to give up Meteor yet. I just have either choose the Meteor here or play Shepherd and Law. And so he makes the Time Hopper, puts a status token on the seedling, I believe, unless he's really committed to this plan of getting status tokens on hoppers to make the 3rd and 4th hopper, which again, in this particular state doesn't bother me so much, because we can, again, just play a Lightbringer and force the attack. But yeah, we see the seed get status buffed. Totally expected. He's got that one die left to do those die things with. And he is holding a decent counter to like my Meteor and double Raptor Herder play here. But like, I still think we're probably okay if we don't get to do that. But he spends his dice to make a Standard Bearer instead. And I think this is probably a mistake when your opponent has still got 7 dice and 4 cards to exhaust out your dice pool and your essentially your hand. Because now I know, like, the best play here is just 100% Meteor, right? I can't do it immediately, so I'm gonna have to meditate and play Frostback Bear Book, and I'm gonna take a little bit of damage, but I just have to accept that as a potential outcome. And the damage total is not gonna be a lot. It's gonna be 1, 2, 3 damage, basically. So, like, it's not going to be overwhelming. So I play the Frostback Bear Book and meditate as per plan. And again, I am so sorry just in general about the quality of the video today, because TTS just froze so much that I think it caused my my OBS to not capture a lot of pause moments and work through those things. So that's why you're not seeing a lot of stuff happen here. But I think we'll see that he attacks and I take 4 or 3. This was a really rough match to play, just not because of Josh by any stretch, just because of TTS problems. It makes me very excited for when Ashteki exists, because Ashteki is just such a more smooth experience most of the time. But, peak time, Friday night, lots of people playing, lots of people updating. It just put a lot of pressure, I think, on the TTS servers, and that created some real issues for us. All right, so yep, there was the attack for 3, and we did the Meteor. So I'm sorry for this, the pure level of like ridiculousness that comes from Tabletop Simulator in this particular match. We'll see if we can avoid some of it. Yep. Okay, so all right, so let's see if it recovers out from here. So we've cleared the board. He's out of dice, so he's just passing mains. So I have spent 2 sympathy dice to play Raptor Herder, Hatchling, Raptor Herder, Hatchling. We're just going to start attacking with these herders, because we've got 6 damage on the board, takes him to 4. Frostback Bear is going to take him to 2. And yeah, TTS is just going to make this impossible. So we get down to doing the last 2 damage, and then we're going to go top of round. And all he's able to do is play Creeper into Time Hopper, and Time Hopper can't block, so we can just send the squad. I do choose, just as a safety measure in case of a stasis, to play a Ceratosaurus mount. because if he stasises here, blocks here, he still doesn't win off stasis. But I just wanted to make sure I played the lines just in case for some reason I wasn't thinking of something. And so we then send the squad again, and that is game. So again, I want to give a big shout out to Josh. I think it was well played. I don't think he made any major mistakes. I think he has a really tough matchup against Meteor and against Herald, and the Mark means that the support units for creepers like Standard Bearer and Huntmaster just aren't going to stick around. And Sonic Swordsman is pretty bad for Time Hopper. So and just for shutting off seedlings like I did in round 1. So, again, I think Josh played a great game. Ultimately, I think this is just a tough matchup, and Herald is a very good PB against these kinds of combat-oriented decks. So that's going to do it for round 1. Again, I apologize for the video quality here at the end. Obviously, I wish that it was better, but sometimes you just run into problems with the equipment. So we will be back very soon with another video. Most likely it'll be the round 3 Ashteki matchup for myself. I'm hoping to get a few of Neil's deck tournament performances, like his round 1 Shufflebus tournament, etc., put onto the channel. If you enjoy our content, nothing says you like it better than just to give a thumbs up. Obviously that just tells us, hey, keep doing what you're doing. If you love us, a subscribe just means absolutely the world to us, obviously. And then if you feel like talking about the match, be sure to just drop some notes in the comments below, and we're happy to walk you through anything that you may have for questions on some of these interactions, some of these play patterns, etc. So thanks again, everybody. We'll see you in the next video. Take care.